What's up, guys? All right, I just got an email from a coaching client of mine, and in that email, I swear it must have had 5 I'm sorry's in there. All right, so many apologies when not even one apology was necessary, to be honest with you. Okay, what I want to talk about in this video is to stop apologizing, right? Too many guys are living lives that are apologetic in nature, right? So what I mean by that is that your default is to apologize. And what you're doing when you're apologizing is you're not really apologizing. See, it's not a true apology. I did some videos in the past where I've said, don't explain, don't complain, don't apologize. And people have gotten really upset about the apologize part of that. And they say, oh, you can't say that a man should never apologize. And, if you understand what I'm talking about, I don't mean to never apologize, right? Obviously, if you do something really wrong, but I'm saying your default should be that you don't apologize. Instead, you accept the responsibility and the consequences for your actions. A lot of times, the apology is a way of avoiding conflict. And if you're using an apology to avoid conflict, that's where you have a problem, right? So you'll see this if you have nice guy tendencies, okay? If you tend to be a pushover or you tend to be a people pleaser, what you're gonna do a lot of the time is you're gonna apologize to avoid conflict. And that is not a very masculine trait. If you're having trouble with women, if you feel like women treat you like trash and they treat you like the typical nice guy and you're having trouble with that, what you really need to examine is whether or not you're using apologies as a conflict avoidance mechanism. And if you are, I'm going to teach you how to stop doing that today. But first, I want to give you some examples of what you should actually be doing, right? So first of all, I'm sure that you've had an email that you meant to respond to, or someone's texted you or messaged you, and maybe it's gone a couple of days and now you feel guilty. You're like, wow, I should have responded to this person. And so maybe you get to your keyboard and your fingers start typing, I'm sorry. No, I don't want you to do that. You can't say I'm sorry. Don't say I'm sorry. That's an instance where you should not apologize, okay? The second thing that you might do, if you say, okay, well, I can't say I'm sorry, then you might start off the email with an explanation. You might say, I've been really busy the last few days. Again, this is a conflict avoidance mechanism. It's not just facing the truth of the situation, right? You need to take your hits like a man. That means to stand up and accept whatever the consequences are for your actions without making an excuse and without using a buffer like an apology in order to avoid the conflict. If you really want to be blunt about what happened, just say, I'm really late to responding to your email, and then start talking. All right? Or you can ignore it completely. I mean, hey, you're late. They know it. You know it. Is there any need to say it? Is there any need to make a fake apology about this or give them some kind of excuse about this? A good example of this would be, imagine that you were late for work, okay? You overslept, whatever, maybe there was traffic. You go into work, all right, and your boss says, hey, you're late. And then you say, yeah, I woke up late. I had some car trouble, whatever. Okay, do you think that this person respects you more for that? Do you think that's what your boss wants to hear? I mean, if you were a boss and an employee tells you some excuses as why they're late, do you think more or less of them? You probably think less of them, unless they have an amazing excuse. Even then, right? If they're like, I got my leg cut off, well, whatever it is, I was in a car accident. Okay, you're still, in that extreme case, maybe you can understand, but it doesn't really cause you to gain more respect for someone. But let me give you a different scenario. Let's imagine, okay, that instead of this employee coming in and saying why he's late and apologizing for it, instead if he said, before you said anything, let's say that you're the boss, he comes up to you and he says, I'm late for work today. I have no excuse. I should have been on time. Now how much respect do you have for this person? Okay, this is a man who accepts his consequences. He doesn't need to apologize for it, okay, because he willfully did that. It's his fault. He takes responsibility for it. A lot of times when you apologize, you're shirking responsibility. It might not seem like that, right? But a true apology has 3 elements to it, okay? You state what you did wrong, you state how it made the other person feel, and you make remediations for it. You make up for it, okay? So if you're truly sincerely sorry, then you will do all 3 of those things. But if you're not, then the best course of action is just to accept the consequences, just to own what happened and accept the consequences for that action. It's only when there's a miscommunication that an apology is needed, right? An apology is when you need to communicate your intent is not to harm and that you feel regret for the harm that you've caused. When you show up late for work, everyone knows you didn't do this to harm your boss. You didn't do this to harm your company. You did it because you're incompetent, because you failed as a man. You failed to live up to your commitments. And all you have to do, the person you need to apologize to when you screw up like this is yourself. That's who you need to apologize to because you failed yourself. You don't need to apologize to your boss or someone else. So what I want you to do, I want you to practice anytime that you're about to say the words, I'm sorry, I want you to think about who actually is responsible and who did I do the harm to. Most of the time when you're saying I'm sorry, it's because you did the harm to yourself, okay? And second of all, I want you to think about, am I using these words to avoid conflict? Would it be better and more straightforward if I just acknowledged what I did and said what I did? In fact, more times than any other time, I'm gonna guarantee you that most people would rather you acknowledge what you did. They would not like an apology. Instead, they would rather you just acknowledge what you did and take full ownership for it without an excuse. I could guarantee you, if someone does some harm to me, rather than them apologize and tell me why they did it, or tell me, how sad they are, how sorry they are, or any kind of crap like that, I would much rather them be direct, fully own what they did, admit what they did, and tell me how they're going to correct their action in the future and accept whatever consequences come from that. That I would much rather have, and I think that you probably would as well. So stop being a pushover, stop being a nice guy, stop being a people pleaser, and stop apologizing so much.